This is about the 10th time I've started this video today, and I'm trying to shorten it up as much as I can. I kind of get off on a tangent, but I'm just going to talk about the Gen 1 shock exchange. I'm trying not to get off on the Gen 2 and Gen 3 and the live valves and all that, but Gen 1 frequently asked questions. A lot of people ask me about price. So the price that you pay is $14.85. That includes everything. That includes the schrader valve upgrade, it includes our gauge, it includes shipping to you and back, and it includes the deposit. So everything is in there. You won't pay any more than that. When we get your shocks back, as far as how the deposit refund goes, you're going to get between, your minimum is $100. You'll never get less than $100 back, and you'll never get more than $250. The reason you'll never get less than $100 back is I have a minimum. So sometimes when we get shocks back, they're in such bad shape that I just discount the parts that they take to fix them for the next customer, because the last customer paid for the shocks that you got in the exchange. They paid for that for you. But basically, I'll try to stick with the deposit refund here. The parts that your shocks that you return need get deducted from the deposit. So on Gen 1s, we put all new shafts in all 4 shocks. These shocks are mechanically brand new when you get them from us. And sometimes the shocks, we just had a customer yesterday, I'll get his sheet here. He needed, his shocks were so bad, I'll cover up the name, but this is the repair sheet that I'll send to you, and it'll tell you how much stuff we had to replace. We had to replace all 4 front shafts, 1 front rod guide, both rear rod guides and both rear reservoirs, and 1 rock guard was broken. When it gets that bad, the cost for the parts is more than the deposit, than the $600. So I just discount the parts. I figure I just want to give everybody something back, and if I have to make a little bit less on the parts, so be it. So you'll get at least $100 back, and the most you'll ever get back is $250. But how I do it now, when we get your shocks back, after you return the shocks that you took off your truck, as soon as we get them back, I'll send you $100. That's because I know that you're not going to get any less than that. And then once we get your shocks apart, it's usually, we try to get them apart between, it's anywhere from 1 day to 3 weeks. It's just some days we'll get 10 boxes back, but we can't get through 10 boxes in a day. So when we do get your shocks apart, you got the $100 when we got them back, and let's just say your total refund was $187. When we get them apart, I'll contact you. I'll be like, we gave you $100 when we got them back. The total is $187, so here's another $87. So if it's $200, you'll get $100 back when we get them back right away, and you'll get another $100 when we get them apart. So, but I'll let you know. I just refund it right back to the card. As far as doing the exchange versus the rebuild, the price in the end is the same. If you take the shocks off your truck because you want to keep your shocks, that's fine. Basically what you're doing, you're sending them to us, we're going to charge you for the rebuild. There's no deposit, but you'll pay for all those parts up front. With the exchange, you're just paying for the parts on the back side. So you're paying a little bit more up front for the exchange, but you get a refund. If you just send your shocks in to get rebuilt, there's no refund and there's no deposit, but you still have to pay for the parts. So in the end, it is the same exact price whether you send your shocks in to get rebuilt or if you do the exchange, right down to the penny. The benefit of doing the exchange, though, is you don't have to wait for your shocks that you took off your truck to send here and send back and get rebuilt. That would be 2 weeks of your truck just sitting there. It's okay if you have another vehicle and you don't want to drive your Raptor for a couple weeks, but the exchange is it works the best. I would say 99% of our customers do the exchange. It's just, there's no downtime. Your truck is going to be down for a very short amount of time. So bags. When we ship the shocks to you, there will be bags in the box. And the reason that we do that is, like, this shaft here is scored and it was leaking. So we want to keep our packaging material as clean as we can. And if you put the bags around those shocks that are leaking, that'll help us do that. As far as grading your shocks, what I do on Gen 1s is, when people place an order, I just have you send me pictures of your shocks, and I just have you text me the pictures. And when you're taking the pictures, I want the pictures of the front facing side of the shocks. The reason I do that is because the front side of the shocks is the worst side, always. That comes from just driving down the road, following a vehicle, the rocks off their vehicle, hit your vehicle, you know, and even like your rear shocks, the rocks off the road and the debris from your front tires is hitting the back. So you'll see a lot of shocks. There will be a good side and a bad side. This was the front side of this shock. That's the back side. So that's why I do that. And as far as the condition of the shocks that you get from us, the shocks I send you, they'll look better than what you have. They won't look worse. So, like, this is a shock that we'll just take this body off and either powder coat it, or I'll just put a new body on and throw this one away. But this is another you know, grade of a shock here. You've got corrosion around here. So I won't send you a shock that looks worse than that. It'll either look the same or just a little bit better. But that kind of shows you the different grades of shocks and how I do it. So I don't leave it up to you to tell me what grade your shock is. I want pictures of it. And sometimes the nice thing about getting pictures of Gen 1s is I can spot other things that are wrong. I've literally had people send me a picture of their shocks, and they're like, my mechanic said the shocks are leaking. And I'll look at them and I'm like, so he could see the shocks were leaking, but he couldn't see that you have a coil spring broke. So that's kind of how the process works. Shipping labels, we send it out. Again, your shocks are, the cost includes the return shipping, so there will be a return label in your box. So when you open your box, look for that and put it on the box when you send them back. And all you have to do is put it on the box, drop it off at FedEx, and you're done. Also included in the price, you're going to get your shuttle gauge to check the gas pressure in your shocks. The shocks are ready to bolt on. If you wanted them at mid-perch, we're going to have them at mid-perch. Do not check the shock gas pressure when you get them. All you're doing is wasting nitrogen. And I can't stress that enough. I have people check them and they're like, well, we checked the shocks and they're at 250, and you don't have to check them. I wouldn't send them to you if they're not ready to bolt on. So, and yes, your shocks take 250. The Gen 1s, 250 PSI. You can run them down to 200. I tell customers when they start to get below 200, start finding nitrogen. It doesn't do any good, it doesn't do your shock any good to run it at a low gas pressure. We do have a video on YouTube explaining gas pressures and things like that. I don't want to get into it on this one. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. In regards to your rear shocks, this is a set that's going out today. So as far as your rear shocks go, you don't have to turn the rock guard. They're ready to bolt on. Again, schrader valve. That is a must. I tell customers all the time, not putting schrader valves in shocks would be like buying brand new tires and not putting valve stems in them. How are you going to check them? And these shocks need the gas pressure. You have to be able to check these. People ask me all the time about the difference between what we do and like buying OEM replacement shocks. I'm not going to talk bad about them. So like Rock Auto is what most people say, or There's other places I'm sure you can get them, but this is the number one. These shocks, you have to be able to check the gas pressure in them. This is the monotube shock with nitrogen in it. When that nitrogen gets low, it's just like driving your truck with 20 pounds of air in the tires. They're not going to last as long. You have to be able to check the gas pressure in these. And when you buy shocks, OEM replacement shocks, this is what you get. You get the same thing that's causing the problems right now. It's just a plug. It's a rubber pellet in there, and whatever you want to call this, a hyper screw, and then they pound a little plastic ball in there. And I can check the gas pressure in them, but you can't. And if anybody is rebuilding shocks, if you're looking at getting your shocks from somebody and they're not putting schrader valves in these monotube shocks, you should probably find a different place to get your shocks. So I won't even do them without the schrader valves. That's how important it is. If somebody said, I absolutely don't want schrader valves in my shocks, I would tell them, I would just ask them, I'll be like, I'm not going to do it, because that's how important it is. So anyways, that is how the shock exchange works. I hope this clears up some of the confusion sometimes and some of the questions we get. As far as lead times, we try to get them out. Sometimes we'll get them out same day. Usually doesn't take us more than a week, but most of the time, I would say on average, we get them out the same day or within 2 days. We usually have sets built and ready to ship. So if you have any questions on these, give us a call. My number is 605-354-2126. My email is shocksbyhammer@gmail.com. Our website is shocksbyhammer.com. One other thing that I forgot to mention as far as installing the shocks on your truck when you get them from us is we turn the spring perches on these. So your front shocks will be, they're side specific. They're not side specific as far as how they work, but just the aesthetics of the shock. The SVT logo, we want that facing the front of the shock, and we want the schrader valve, when you're putting the shock on, we want the schrader valve pointing towards you, not pointing towards the ground. So we turn the spring perches. The reason that we want the schrader valves pointing towards you is it's a lot easier to check the gas pressure from up there than it is to have to either jack the truck up and crawl under it and try to put your fingers through the lower control arm. So your front shocks will say left front and right front. And here's another question. People ask, is the right front the passenger side? Yes. The right front is like as you're sitting in the vehicle, that's the right front, not looking at the vehicle from the front of the truck. So right front is passenger side. And as far as YouTube, my boy, he's been working for me for 8 or 9 years, and we're doing everything on his. We're trying to grow his YouTube page, so all of our videos will be on @DawsonDede on YouTube, and it's just @DAWSONDIEDE. And please like and subscribe to his channel, and also comment. If you have questions, you can comment on there, and we'll answer the questions on there. So again, thank you. If you have any questions, you can call me. We've been in the shock business for 15 years, and we'll take care of you. Thank you.